Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these creepy stories, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss out on more. Let's get into it. It was mid-January, and it had been snowing non-stop for days. Thankfully, I work from home, so I didn't have to deal with the miserable weather too much aside from the occasional grocery run. Some days were brutal with heavy snowfall and gusting winds. That particular day, I'd been stuck in Zoom meetings for work, but my internet connection was awful, cutting in and out constantly. By 6 p.m., my connection dropped completely, so I just called it a night. The sun had already set, but I still took my dog outside for a quick bathroom break. The wind was so bitterly cold it was painful, and as I stood there, I noticed a person near the road. They weren't doing anything, just standing there in the freezing weather. It struck me as strange, but I hurried back inside before I could think much of it. After drying my dog Gracie's paws, I bundled up under some blankets on the couch. I turned on the news in the background in case there were any storm warnings or blizzard updates. Only a few minutes passed before Gracie suddenly perked up. A moment later, she started growling at the front door. I didn't have any curtains open, so I couldn't see outside. Confused, I got up and approached the door. That's when I saw him, someone walking around my front patio. I could make out fresh shoe prints in the snow, back and forth across the same spot. It was like he'd been pacing there for a while already. I watched as he repeated the motion again before walking to the side of my house and disappearing from view. After a minute, I went back to the couch, trying to calm down. Gracie settled down too, lying back down as if nothing had happened. I wasn't sure what to make of the guy, but I didn't think it was worth calling the police over, not yet, anyway. I just kept an eye on Gracie in case she reacted again. The rest of the evening was quiet. Around 10 o'clock, I took Gracie out for one last bathroom break. It was even colder and snowier by then, so I figured no one in their right mind would still be out there. After coming back inside, I locked up, went upstairs to my bedroom, and got ready for bed. I'm not sure if I'd fallen asleep or was just drifting off, but I remember opening my eyes to see Gracie standing at the bedroom door. She was completely still, ears perked up, and her tail tucked under her legs. Something was wrong. I whispered her name, trying to call her over, but she didn't budge. Gracie was always anxious around strangers, but she'd never acted this way inside our house. I felt a chill crawl up my spine as I quietly got out of bed and walked to the door. Pressing my ear against it, I tried to listen. It was silent. I didn't know what I expected to hear, but I put my hand on the doorknob, ready to unlock and open it. Just then, the handle twisted. I froze. Someone was on the other side. The knob slowly moved back and forth as they tried to open the door. My heart pounded as I realized I'd nearly unlocked it for them. I stayed quiet at first, but when the person became more aggressive, rattling the knob harder, I knew they already knew I was in there. Panicking, I sprinted back to the bed, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911 while searching for something, anything, to defend myself with. As soon as I started moving, though, the noise stopped. The rattling stopped. The hallway outside went completely silent. Still, I wasn't taking any chances. I grabbed my clothing iron from the closet and told the dispatcher what was happening. I don't know how long I waited, it felt like forever, but eventually, I saw flashing blue and red lights through my bedroom window. The police found no one inside, but the front door was wide open. They said it had likely been lockpicked. Snowy boot prints covered the hallway floor. Nothing had been stolen, they weren't looking for valuables. They were looking for me. Unfortunately, that's where the trail went cold. Whoever it was came and left without leaving any other clues. I don't think I'd ever sleep at night if it weren't for Gracie. She's the reason I'm still here. This happened during our school's winter break. It was the day after Christmas, and I was working part-time at our town's pizza shop. This place was popular, and it felt like half the kids at school also worked there. Being young, every paycheck made me feel rich, so I always agreed to work whenever they asked. I figured it wouldn't be busy that day since most people would be home with family, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Around dinner time, all the tables were full, and delivery orders were non-stop. My job was to seat customers or take deliveries if needed. Around 8 p.m., my manager told me to start taking deliveries. I finished a quick one, picked up another from the kitchen, and hit the road. This delivery was a single pizza to a house about 20 minutes away. At least the roads were empty. It was eerily quiet outside compared to the chaos in the shop. Snow was lightly falling, only visible under the streetlights. It was so peaceful that I actually drove the speed limit, trying to enjoy it before heading back. When I arrived, the house wasn't in a neighborhood. It sat directly off the road with a long gravel driveway leading up to it, surrounded by snow-covered trees. The house had a lot of Christmas decorations, lights, inflatables, everything, but no lights on inside, which I thought was odd. To make it worse, they hadn't plowed their driveway, so I parked as best I could without getting stuck. As I walked up to the porch, I noticed shoe prints in the snow leading toward the house. But something was off. The prints didn't go to the front door, they went around the porch to the side. Weird, but not my problem. I knocked on the door. It was freezing, and after 30 seconds of silence, I knocked again. The only sounds were the faint breeze and snow falling. I checked the receipt, no payment was needed, then knocked a third time. The shoe prints were fresh, so someone had to be home, right? Frustrated and shivering, I knocked one last time, loud enough to shake the door. Still, no answer. I gave up, went back to my car, and tried to start it. The engine stalled. I swore under my breath as I kept trying, my hands getting colder by the second. Then I glanced up, and froze. A person was standing outside the house. They were bundled up, boots, jacket, snow pants, but something felt wrong. I got out of my car. "Hey, did you order the pizza? I've been knocking for 5 minutes." They didn't respond. They just started walking toward me, calmly, not in a rush, like they knew I couldn't leave. My chest tightened, and I scrambled back into my car, locking the doors. I dialed 911 as they approached my window. The dispatcher asked for my emergency. Just then, the man spoke. His voice was low and deep, asking if I needed help. How would he know that? That only made me panic more. I told the dispatcher where I was as the man outside started moving faster, looking around, almost like he was searching for a way in. Sitting helplessly in my freezing car with only a thin window between us was terrifying. He reached into his pocket, rummaging for something, but his expression changed, like he couldn't find what he was looking for. That's when he punched the window. A few hard hits, then he sprinted to the side of the house, probably to grab something. I sat there, shaking, debating whether to wait for the cops or make a run for it. 2 agonizing minutes passed before I saw the flickering blue and red lights in my rearview mirror. At the same time, the man reappeared on the side of the house holding something in his hand. When he saw the police, he bolted into the woods. It doesn't take much to piece together what happened. That man didn't live there, the owners were out for the holidays. He had plugged in their decorations to make the house look occupied. While I was on the porch, he tampered with my car to stop it from starting. I'm guessing he planned to kidnap me, but by sheer luck, he must have dropped his knife or tool, which is why he ran back to get it. I stopped doing deliveries after that night. I'm a 25-year-old woman, and this happened a couple of weeks before Christmas. I live in a small apartment in the city, but my job is out in the suburbs, so my shifts often have me driving late at night. On this particular night, I finished work around 11 p.m. I was the last one to leave the office, so I locked up and walked out into the cold, snowy night. An inch or so of snow had already piled up, so I brushed off my windshield, let my car warm up, and began the long drive home. The roads hadn't been plowed yet, so I drove slowly, trying to keep control of my car. A couple of times, I lost traction for just a second, enough to spike my anxiety before the car jerked back under control. It was a constant balance of driving carefully but not too slow. It was late, and I didn't want the drive to take 2 hours. About 20 minutes into the drive, though, my car lost traction again, only this time, it didn't recover. I slid slowly into a snowbank on the side of the road, angled downward into a ditch. It wasn't a violent crash, and I didn't think the car was damaged, but I was definitely stuck. Frustrated, I threw my hat back on and stepped outside. The snow was already halfway up my doors. I knew I'd have to call for roadside assistance. As I stood there, debating what to do, I noticed headlights approaching. A silver truck slowed down and stopped next to me. The driver rolled down his window and called out, "You need any help? I can tow you out if you want." Relieved, I responded, yeah. That would be great. I'd really appreciate it. Saving on a $200 towing fee and hours of waiting sounded too good to pass up. The man said he'd need 5 minutes to grab his tow hitch from his garage and then he'd be back. I wasn't expecting him to leave after offering help, but I got back in my car to wait, already shivering from the cold. The longer I sat there, though, the more uneasy I felt. It was such an isolated road, and I didn't know this guy at all. Maybe he wouldn't come back, or worse, maybe he would, but not to help me. I debated calling roadside assistance anyway, just in case. That's when I nearly jumped out of my skin. A loud knock came from the driver's side window. My head snapped toward the noise, and I saw someone standing there, staring in at me. It was a man, bundled up in 2 heavy jackets and a scarf that covered most of his face. From the bit of skin I could see, he looked unnaturally pale, like he'd been out in the cold for too long. I hesitated, then cracked the window slightly. I'm okay. I've got help on the way. They should be here any minute. Thank you, though." He didn't say anything. He just kept staring. An icy chill ran through me, and I wasn't sure what to do next. Then I heard a soft click. He tried to open my door. It took me a moment to process what was happening. Before I could react and roll up the window, his arm shot through the crack. He reached inside, unlocked the door, and swung it open. Panic set in. I grabbed at the door and tried to push him away, but he was bigger, much bigger. He grabbed me by my arms and dragged me across the front seat, pulling me out of the car and into the snow. I screamed and kicked as hard as I could, but he didn't stop. Slowly, he was forcing me away from the road and toward the woods. I was fighting with everything I had, but I was losing. Just as I thought I was running out of strength, a blinding flash of headlights lit up the entire area. A man's voice shouted from the road. The stranger froze for just a moment before letting go of me and sprinting into the woods, disappearing into the dark. I collapsed in the snow, gasping for air, my whole body shaking. The man from the silver truck, the one who'd offered to help me earlier, ran over and pulled me to my feet. He gave me his jacket and guided me back to the road, asking if I was okay. The rest of that night is a blur. I remember him calling the police and giving his statement as a witness. I don't even want to think about what would have happened if he hadn't come back when he did. I know one thing for sure, I wouldn't be here telling this story.